Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Maui, Hawaii, United States of America. Today, July 14th, 2021. Today sharing an intimate reflection on something that's been stirring in my heart. Having come here to Hawaii, leaving my chosen monkdom in Los Angeles, and to emerge, come back into my body, into the world, and do everything humanly possible within my skill set, my psychic heart set, to heal my aorta. And equally, part of that, a large part of that, is human intimacy. So today's reflection, just a reflection, a meditation, if you will, on what it means to me to get close to someone. What does it mean to be close? To make closeness, intimacy, the creative process of emotions and thought and conditioning and tone, the vocation, if you will, a priority of that shared space, the aesthetics, if you will, of relational consciousness. I'm very fond, as you know, of the word, but more than the word, the feelings of aesthetics, the spiritual aesthete, if you will. Taking practice and training and the militarization out of Dhamma as much as possible. And for me personally, playing within my own heart stream of the artfulness, the playfulness, the satirical comedy, the drama, a little bit of drama here and there, of human interrelatedness, which is so logo-oriented, so pedantic. So how to bring more closeness to each other, to ourselves. And I was up in my bedroom looking out over the veranda and the ocean and pondering this reflection and thinking of all the remarkable encounters I've had, not just an hour or two or an evening or a weekend or a week, but beautiful, compelling, adventurous experiences with a woman, with a man, with a tribe, a group. And it brought a great deal of joy to me. And that level of translation from mindful reflection on historical experience brought forth, it's like a double joy to know that you've lived well, that you've got an experience, I don't use bank, memorabilia, a sonic, cognitive, existential archive, museum, heaven of beautiful experiences. At the end of a life, the end of a day, the end of a meditation, I mean, what is it that we have other than all of what we know we are and can be? And right there in that inquiry, that mindfulness, that discernment, where do you place your hand, your heart, and call it home, call it conscience, call it dignity, call it a life, an hour, a day, a life well lived? Where's your kiss? Where's your salvation? Where will we, and you and I, draw from in that deep well of life experiences and say, yes, this is a smile for me? And so closeness is a word for me right now. Again, I reiterate, personally here in Maui, the COVID and the variants and the pandemic and the politicalization and the propaganda at the moment seems to be at bay. It's quite a set of hurdles to get to the island here from the mainland or anywhere else in the world. And so masks are primarily off and social distancing seems to be inclusive of physical touch, and the restaurants are beginning to be reacquainted with long lines, and people are coming out. Dinner parties, little gatherings. I've had my own little 3-day gathering. And beginning to include in my Dhamma world this type of new virginity, if you will, of reacquainting myself with intimate human interaction. Maybe I speak for you, maybe not, I'm not sure. I remember many years ago living in the former Yugoslavia, during the final year of their conflict, their war, the genocides. And I was living in the city of Zagreb, and it was just a fascinating, terrifying experience to be that intimate in a horrible war where the streets were filled with displaced people, refugees. At evenings, I would go out. I met a whole group of artists and philosophers and jewelers and filmmakers, poets, young savants, all of whom were always asking, when will I go? How will I decide to go to the front lines, not too far away from the city of Zagreb, and defend my people from this ethnic cleansing, this horrible war? And so it was a very heightened intensity. And so when I think of closeness, I'm thinking right now of that time. It's just how do we live in complex experiences and keep alive, if you will, the magic? I think that's a very important word for me. That is sort of the luminosity of the adventure, is can I learn the high Dharma art of invoking existential magic despite the circumstances? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. Magic wherever I am, with whomever I'm with. And may I invite you to invite me, to invite our friends to take these words, if they have some significance for you, and begin to anoint them as experiences within your own psychic, physical, existential mind, body, so that they become meditative, yogic expressions of inner Dharma, world Dharma asanas. Remember that the Dhamma is all about experience, felt, dynamic, holistic magic brought forth in our hearts through choice, mindfully intelligent choice-making brushstrokes on the canvas, the theater stage, the infinite tapestry of consciousness. Deliberate engagement of what's known as the paramis, right? The 10 most excellent states of consciousness according to the teachings found in Dhamma, attributed to the Buddha. I don't really like to use those words to mean Buddhism, because they don't mean Buddhism to me, but paramis, these art, color, form, sonic, musical notes, the letters of our heart, sonic vibrations, frequencies, whatever we want to call it, oxygen, the oxygen of closeness. So investing meditatively in the beauty of our own interiority and engaging the qualities of what we aspire to bring to other, to bring to self. I've often said this, be the chemistry that we seek, right? Rather than waiting for that cathexis of conditioned mystical chemistry and all of a sudden, yes, twin flame, soulmate goes down in flames yet again because I was unaware of the projection and the dependency of me being something only based upon her or him. So the dance of closeness obviously is a radical dance of both wonderment and curiosity. How could we ever say enough about honesty? I mean, we all want to be honest. We all want to be transparent. And closeness and honesty and transparency are so foundational. But to live and to walk in the fidelity of honesty and transparency and to elevate the status of integrity, moral courage, these old-fashioned concepts seem to be so important more than ever today. Knowing that you can be trusted. There's something in that. And so in Zagreb, we would go out at night, and I was with a band of radicals. My partner at the time, Petra, would go out in the evenings into these smoke-filled, really super rad nightclubs. And there were so many interesting people there, from soldiers, men and women who'd come in from the front lines, those who were crying and weeping about the need to go, those who were grieving the loss of someone that they knew. Everyone lost someone there. Everyone knew someone fighting. And it's all around you. It was like this incredible trap. At the same time, in that so-called dark trap, and I use the word sacred terror here, I was a mere outsider with an American passport, pretty easy to fly out, but they couldn't. And you're in this entrapment based upon human conditions of violation and war and xenophobia and all the precursors that substantiate the necessity of ethnic cleansing, just crazy propaganda. And yet within that, the boys and girls, the men and women I was hanging with, and the high art of this very radical existential closeness, it was a beautiful experience. I cry and weep at the gift of what that provided me and afforded me to understand human intimacy and the power of human agency and the beauty, the true beauty of the human condition in proximity to intimate, beautiful states of playful awe, tenderness, eroticism, dance. Yes, drinking at times and smoking cigarettes for me at that time. And people were smuggling in really high-grade MDMA from Amsterdam and offering it freely. And we were doing it all the time and talking and writing and dancing and making love. And, you know, the essence of this isn't just to anoint something that I've done that's been terrifyingly adventurous. I'm not trying to bring something special to that, but it's the gift of the proximity of these beautiful people. And because dictatorship, here we go, because dictatorship and totalitarian structures were being metastasized throughout culture in these countries, the march of genocide is really about the march of totalitarianism. That the boys and girls and the men and women I were hanging with is that, you know, they did not want to become, as Václav Havel stated, as I paraphrase him, you know, Under the totalitarian governments in the former Czech Republic, even when liberated, people still conditioned by the totalitarian horror walked with shoulders hunched over, and creativity was buried deep in the shadows of their own soul, and they mimicked the oddity of their own oppressors in faceless behaviors that were utterly ununique. And there's something in that interface between the human beauty of uniqueness and our own aspirations to bring uniqueness into proximity with other. That dance, that beautiful, often terrifying, complicated terrain called human interaction with self and other. And those forces outside of us that seemingly want to oppress beauty, the uniqueness of your face and your breasts and your body and your waist and your fingers, the way you talk and touch and love and eat and whatever you do, the utter uniqueness of that, the authenticity of that, coupled with dignity and integrity and cool and ease and playfulness and aesthetics and poise and restraint, all the factors of consciousness, all the paramis plus some and more, to confront the injustice of the totalitarian march. And so in the middle of all this, and we were really hip on dancing at that time. There was such great music in Europe coming into the city here and down into the nightclubs. And the men and women I were hanging with, in their own protest to dictatorship, their own protest to totalitarianism, non-violent protest, there was an unspoken agreement among everyone not to dance in the same way, to manifest the beauty of your own uniqueness, the radical, unthinkable beauty of your own authenticity, the gorgeous splendor of your own intimate expression of truth-telling emotions. Isn't that what we're looking for in each other? Becoming somewhat unglued, if you will, from the conformity of expectations and the symbolic mask over everything and the pretense of being postured and all those artifices that are so utterly human, right? But the adventure of closeness and the unthinkable pleasure that comes from being close. Anyway, that was one dimension of experience that I found so radically inspiring as I remember it here today, nearly, 30 years hence. Closeness. How well do we kiss? What does that mean? How well do we stay open to the newness of an intimacy within a marriage, my parents, 75 years. Wedded for 75 years. That bond, how durable, how do we strengthen it? How do we come out of our own shells? How do we come out of the projection of predictability? How do we keep freshness and newness alive? We meet someone brand new. How well do we arrive in that special place and overcome the inevitable conditionings of prejudice, of judgment, of doubt, the ways in which we distance ourselves from ourselves through the habits of staying shackled by unrecognized conditions that function to distance. And yes, you can be so right in your accusations of soul, of self and other. But at the end of a day, the end of a life, we have to make peace, if there is such a thing, with all of our contempts. And so the Dharma life and the Dhamma life, becoming more close. You know, I think of those days way back of John and Yoko with all of their troubles in their marriage, and that indelibly placed image of him being nude in bed and hugging her from the side. And all those months and years locked away in the top floor of the Dakota, playing music, coming to terms with love and intimacy and his son and her and him and God and all the various things. There's something in that closeness that just inspires me. Yes, I would love to do my John and Yoko, just completely whole off, romanticize the silence, getting to know one person on this planet so well that you discover everything about yourself that you ever hoped to discover through psychotherapy and psychedelics and travel and music and dance. Yes, everyone has their own unique path. We know that. But there's something instinctually so breathtaking about one other. And I'm not the polyamorous type. The one other. Yes, so idealistic, Alan. I look at the Buddhist text and I look at my relationships with my own teachers in Burma. And so much, I was just saying last night, when people ask me about my time in the monastery, what do I remember the most? It's my relationships. And really, when I think of my relationships, there's maybe 3 or 4, but it really came down to the elevation pretty much of one. There's something so beautiful about that one relationship, where you're looking for that kind of engaged magic, where there's just high fidelity in the playfulness of your own shared awakening. And there you invest everything you've got and more. You'll do everything, right? To learn new steps, new music, new lyrics, new colors, new sounds, new ways of sleeping and sitting and walking and touching and bathing, everything you can possibly do to anoint that with the highest qualities of beauty. The aspiration, I think that's another part of the closeness paradigm for me. Are your aspirations still magical for you? Reinvigorate the miracle of your own life at any age. My mom, before she passed away at 96, took me aside in the assisted living home, wheeled her outside and says, "Alan, I don't know that we'll ever see each other again. You're a lot younger than I. You're mobile, you can move. Look at my hands, they're gnarled with arthritis. I can't do anything without the assistance of others. I can't walk, I can't clean myself, I can't even eat. Go forth, Alan. Don't tell people you love them. Show them, show yourself. Invest in that love. Go out into the light. Look up." All these poetic ways, my mom and I, we talked every day before she passed away, by phone and Skype. Tremendous gift to live, as Gandhi said, be the message, be all that you can possibly be, or live in self-contempt and regret. A little bit too harsh to say that. But here, for me, as I come closer to the end of the sharing today, I feel gifted. You know, I met a young man the other day, a tremendous healer, and he and I have bonded in these incredible communications. He's an ambassador of the cosmos. That's what I call him, an ambassador of the cosmos. He calls me the ambassador of my heart. And in that mutuality, a tremendous sonic flow of information and energy and kindness and gifting of his wisdom in my life, and the interplay of, you know, 2 brothers taking it higher. And the essence for me, as I did in Zagreb and danced in this utter uniqueness of my own Alan Clements-ness. He's anointing me with this support to see that at the core of my being, the sonic heart, not the vascular heart, the mystical heart, the pre-existential source of my intelligence and my being and my karma and my future, the radiance of that spectrum, that deeper, deeper heart, to rise up into that energy. It's not only healed, it is in the enlightenment phase of evolution development, because that's who you are. You're a being rooted in paramis. You're a son of the Buddha, he said. Buddhang saranang gacchami. We chanted this. We take refuge in the awakening of our ethereal Buddha. My aorta never was damaged. I am working from the visualization of the deepest existential anatomical purity of already everywhere healed. In the awakening of the enlightening process, I use the word nibbanification. I've now brought it slowly here on the island of Maui into my heart. The unconditional release of negativity, of diminishment, and the deepest aspirations, I can say this with a smile, the deepest aspirations of wanting to commune, radical, existential, poetic, intimate companionship, first and foremost, with all of me. Bring, Alan, your magic to your life, your heart, your bodies, your veins, your arteries, your brain, your voice, your sensitivity, your mortality. Bring magic. Why postpone? Do all that you can to fast if you need to reinvigorate an intimacy with the best of you. And then bring that best to the woman or the man or the company or the family or the setting that you're involved in, and deliver your poetic, your satirical, comedic, whatever it is that you want to dance there in that beautiful place of shared space, go for it, right? I'm thinking now, as I'm spontaneously riffing, of a beloved friend of mine shared by a beloved friend of a few other friends, Trey Mead. A gifted human mind, a gifted human heart. You could talk for a long time about this precious soul. He's passed on some years back. I met him deep in the jungles of northeastern Burma in the Karen state, several days up from Mae Sot, up the river, and then a long trek into the mountains. And there I was escorted by students who had fled the persecution in 1988. This was 1990. And it was an apocalyptic setting. I'd never been there. I'm a non-combatant. And yet it was terrifying and exhilarating to be in such a context with guerrilla war. And there I was, shivering in a sacred kind of oddity, a long way from the safety of a demarcation between the enemy and us. Now we were surrounded with the so-called enemy. And out of nowhere, as I was crouched behind a tree, there is a beautiful man who just looks me dead in the eyes and said, "You're a non-combatant. Don't do anything here that jeopardizes the safety of those who need to protect you and keep you alive." Just super soul straight talk. He had a massive tattoo on his shoulder, quintessential Vietnam vet. Several tours, volunteered as a young man to the height of conflict in Khe Sanh in the north. He stood up for America. He stood up for the ideals, and he was standing up for the people of Burma during the persecution by the military that's continuing to this very day. You're a non-combatant. Don't jeopardize those who need to protect you, to do your job, to report the evidence of your observations to the broader world. We bonded. So much can go down in the unexpected moment by truth-telling, deep, heartfelt, adventurous engagement. Follow your truth. The heroine's journey, whatever it may be for you, unplug, unengage from the doldrums of predictable, ordinary existence. Trey was a rad novelist, writer, thinker, liver, walked his emotional talk, stood firm in the face of the enemy with a gun and said, "No, you can't do that over my body." Taking a stand in our closeness. So cool to meet people that are valued and principled. Trey's right up there in the Oscars for me. Several days later, we are inching our way back down to the river. There were some Burmese soldiers that had been captured in a firefight. All of a sudden, he ran as if trying to escape, and suddenly there was a loud crackling of fire, and he was shot in the hip. We all raced over there. Trey was behind me. I began to try to separate the man who had shot him from the Burmese soldier there writhing in pain. "Don't," I said, "don't." And Trey again grabbed me by the shoulder, looked at me dead in the eye and said, "This is not your war, Alan." Such succinct truth-telling. You may agree or disagree. That Burmese soldier who was captured was shot. And Trey made perfect ethical sense to me. In a tragic world, I thanked him for the teachings. Hundreds of other stories. I think of my time in the monastery, sacred space. The beauty of being close to my teacher, the late Venerable Sayadaw U Pandita, took me in. The first human being on the planet. Really, Catherine, my first partner, she and I were rad and got down, and she got it. But as a man, Sayadaw U Pandita greeted my intensity, elevated it, celebrated it, anointed it, and said it's totally rad. You're not too intense. Do you ever get supported in your closeness to be truly who you really are? Isn't that what we want? Really who you are, and in that togetherness, that noble interactive space of communion and engagement and retreat, evolve, create, dance in silence and in orchestration of the best of us. And U Pandita would be so remarkable in offering beautiful little gifts, teachings from books. And one of the things that I remember so beautiful about him, he took the pressure of time out of the space. There was never a sense for me, perhaps I'm being slightly idealistic, there was never a sense that we're exceeding something. You really felt the relaxation of the expectations other than high integrity and radical transparency, and being mindful of your mind and mindful of your body. long silences. Those of you who know the Burmese language and monastic traditional Burmese etiquette, you can just simply go into a room without saying hello and just simply sit and occupy shared space in intimate psychic communion, but verbally and physically silent. Therein lies where I could go for a couple of days and talk. I love being around those women and men who have relationships to the psychic, the super sensitive auditory vibrational frequencies that precede ordinary thought and emotion, psychology, and are able to play and talk and commune and evolve those systems and formations at a more nuanced or subtle level. I've just got so many stories swimming through my soul right now of my experiments with Janine and Marcia way back in the early 2000s in Vancouver, where we did many numerous thought existential experiments with the DMT molecule and the MEO molecule, and the exploration of the intersubjective and the interrelational and the communication with deeper places of our own identities with ourselves and each other, selves and multiple selves and sub-selves, and the various exploration of the intimacies of that deep, deep willingness to abide, occupy, co-evolve. And say to U Pandita, you could make eye contact with him, for example, and he was radically uncomfortable, radically comfortable in being present with you in that shared psychic space. That's pretty special to know that you can hang in psychic silence and deliver on the promise of your heart. I remember being around him also at the bedside of people who were dying and watching, I would call, Dharma elegance in action. He was very, very committed to neither encouraging attachment to the form or to this life or to the breath, nor encouraging transition and rebirthing or redeathing into a next formation, neither wish to live nor fear dying, and playing in that infinite psychic emotional Dhamma terrain of dynamic stillness and awakened wisdom in that shared space right now. He was very gifted, I felt, in the nibbanification of intimacy. I'm not sure exactly where I first heard this. It may have been something that Amnesty International may have posted many years ago, I'm not certain. But in their deep desire to bring awareness to prisoners of conscience worldwide, those men and women at this very moment and all throughout history that have been persecuted and tortured, often killed for their religious, philosophical, spiritual beliefs and their ethical courage to stand true in keeping them alive, even in the face of violence and persecution. But how do we heal the divide between the haves and the have-nots, those who we like and those whom we don't like, How could the terrorist at large in Burma, Ming Aung Hlaing, and the noble woman he is incarcerated, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, those two individuals, the epic feminine expression of nonviolent democratic revolution in action that includes even the well-being of the enemy. Never heard her vilify or demonize or even judge someone. Whereas on the other side, Ming Aung Hlaing, the terrorist at large and the war criminal wanted in The Hague for crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing, it's the archetypal opposite of the radical nonviolent activist, politician, meditator, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. And we have that dynamic. And I imagine, what would I want to see created to heal that? Okay, closeness is one thing in the poetry of Maui and in meditation circles or with DMT or MEO or dance and music. But what about on a high political level? And I'm thinking back on the Amnesty video I think I saw, where they brought people from different sides of the divide, a Palestinian and a Jew. And supported them in sitting across from each other for 4 minutes in silent, intimate human contact. And the power of not just eye contact, but human courage to look into the eyes of another person's heart and humanity and go beyond the prejudice, the xenophobia, the outrage. I can imagine what it would be like where there's coffee bars and Starbucks and restaurants where you go and eat in silence. I know that they exist, and you, in a way, go there and eat in eye contact, intimate silence with your date, your lover, your friend, your daughter, your son, your mother, your father, your Buddha, yourself. The opposite of sex workers, as we might know them, as beautiful as some of them can be. But intimacy, heart workers, where we go to places and we take down the artifice of separation and we make physical, emotional, existential, human contact to regenerate our love of closeness. Why is that so strange to even say that? Imagine right now if Ming Aung Hlaing had the ethical courage, the spiritual wisdom to just simply say to Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, I have made a mistake, Daw Suu. I would like to get to know you in truth. I would like to sit across from you and simply be in silence with you and make eye contact with you in your heart. And could you imagine that? What a gift it would be for the world, a simple gesture of 4 minutes of human heart-eye contact. It would be perhaps the most extraordinary event ever known on the planet. And it was broadcast live worldwide. Why is that such a fantasy? Why is that such an oddity? Why is that something I will only anoint in the film script that I'm now writing? I want to create a piece of art, heart, existential theater that is the finest expression of intimacy, revolutionary closeness, and dynamic transformational action before I, you, us die. The gift of closeness. Imagine in that moment a little bit of MDMA. Why is that provocative? A little bit of MDMA. In a safe and secure setting where Ming Online, the epic, satanic, evil enemy of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, who refuses to vilify the man in her own heart. I know her well. Why? I'll close. Maybe I'll continue tomorrow. My dear friend, beloved friend and mentor, the senior-most member of the political party that he was one of the founders of, the National League for Democracy, the same as the political party of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and the late U Win Tin, the imprisoned U Win Tain, so many, hundreds of thousands of people. I recently saw him in Rangoon at his home, and we've been deep friends since he was released from the first 6 years of incarceration in insane prison. I think it was back in 1980, 81. He was released. He was the former general of the army under the dictator Ne Win, who then appointed Tan Shui, who appointed now the terrorist leader-at-large Ming Online, a succession of satanic cult figures. U Tin U was actually a general under one of those satanic cult leaders. And he made this epic transformation of being imprisoned by the dictator for fear of his popularity in a coup d'etat. And he was given a book of meditation by my preceptor, the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, and that is what saved his psychic physical life in solitary confinement. Let me tell this story more quickly. I'm sorry. He ordained as a monk. He then went on to found the National League for Democracy. It may have been in 1988 with Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and U Chi Mong and others, and U Win Tin, and the nation really, who wanted democracy and freedom and rule of law in the end to tyranny and totalitarianism. He then went back to prison and under house arrest 2 or 3 more times for a total of 19 years. And his second 6-year incarceration, back in 1995, when he was released from his second 6-year period of incarceration, along with Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and others, I met him and he introduced me to Daw Suu at her home in Rangoon, where we commenced many clandestine conversations, which resulted, as many of you know, in the book that she titled The Voice of Hope. These precious words of hers and U Tin U, U Chi Mong, and many others are found in our 4-volume set of books called Burma's Voices of Freedom, produced and authored with my brilliant colleague, Fergus Harlow. The point. I asked U Tin U at Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's house one day, how do you get through the darkest times in solitary confinement? I mean, here we are. It's one thing, Alan, to poetically talk about getting close in the intimacy of coming out of a lockdown and a pandemic and being available to human touch, to intimacy, to sexuality, to silence, to meditation, to basic human beauty. But what about perpetual discontinuity of all things comfortable and precious, torturous solitary confinement that is happening around the world right now, and especially in the country of Myanmar, with close to 5,000 political prisoners, where there's a refusal to make eye contact with the satanic leader Ming Online, with these people, and Aung San Suu Kyi, or U Tinu, who's still alive. And I asked him that question, how do you get through the darkest times in solitary? Well, he gave about an hour and a half answer to this, and I'll close in less than 2 minutes. He spoke in succession of complexity, how hard it was to live without a blanket, a mosquito net, or a pillow, or a flush toilet. How hard it was to eat food that wasn't fit for dogs. How hard it was to overcome his feeling of being a victim. And here he was, a revolutionary leader of freedom. And yet he challenged all of those through meditation, forgiveness, loving kindness. But he told me at the end, the most difficult times in solitary, and he reiterated, it can get really dark in there, really, really dark and difficult to be only with your own soul, your own psyche, with your own memories. He took my hand and grasped it and closed his eyes and began to openly reflect with me. He said, in the darkest times, I would bring into conscious reflection, a high pixelation, my word, a memory, he said, of love, a memory of intimate closeness. What a way to live, right? A memory of love, making our life a vocation of the expression of intimate love, closeness in dynamic, creative action. The way we stand, talk, dress, answer the call of nature, wash, bathe, eat, drive, touch our cat, our dog, our daughter, our son, touch our own body, make love, tenderly, openly, passionately, wildly create, write books, sing songs, dance with clothes on and with clothes off, whatever we do. Grab my hand. He said, I would bring a memory of love to the forefront of my heart. He began to talk about a memory that he often brought, a memory of love with his wife. And of course, I'm paraphrasing right now. He said he brought the memory of his wife to his mind and heart, and he imagined the past, the way she looked at me, her eye color, the fluttering of her eyes, her lipstick, the color of it, the smell of her body and her skin, her words, the sound. Now, it's impossible to recreate something I've never experienced, but let us employ the magic as we started this conversation, bringing magic to complexity and bringing magic to beauty. My friend U Tinu is bringing magic to complexity through a memory of love. Imagine alone, and there's no one else, nothing else to rely on except a memory of the past. And we mindfully and meditatively bring that memory. He's bringing the memory of his wife's words. He said, I heard those words as forms of nutrient to sustain me in the deepest, darkest time of my life. words of love, of kindness, of warmth, of compassion. He was denied visitation, denied exercise. His cell was completely wrapped with barbed wire for fear that they would release him or try to fly in and take him out of the country. He kept squeezing my hand tighter and tighter, like just squeezing it. And you could see in his mind's eye, along with his face became luminous with light, as if the memory of love was now coming back into the fidelity of the present. Well, he went on like this with his memory of love of his wife. And he concluded by saying, I would take the memory of the past and then begin to feel the emotion of that past into the present, bring the past into the present. I'd bring the feeling of human warmth from the past into the present, and it would fill my body with light, with hope, with this memory of love brought into present time presence. And then he opened his eyes, he was squeezing my hand, and he looked at me and he said, it is from my memory of love with cherished ones, bringing the past into the present is what got me through the darkest times in solitary confinement. It's all about, Alan, human warmth, closeness. And I will conclude here with an invitation for all of us, should you believe and feel and move into your heart with magic, with miracle, with possibility. Leave the rest behind. Walk and talk and move and consecrate each of our encounters to the best of our ability with the preciousness of this experience being something that we may very well carry into, I dare even say it, our own solitary confinement, a prison cell, being ostracized by family because of this or that. Whatever we need to do, all we have is our interiority ultimately. And how well do we love? How well do we enact the sacred art of intimacy and closeness with not only as many people, I wanted to say everyone, as many people as possible that we meet, but to keep high in the sky of our creative hope. I do believe in those special few, and maybe even that special one, like I had with Mahasi Sayadaw, or with Sayadaw U Pandita, or with Do Aung San Suu Kyi, or U Chi Mung, or U Win Tain, or U A Win, or my beloved mentor, U Tin U, or the lovers in my life and partners in my life, or with my daughter. All these precious encounters, the constellations, the rainbows, and the high hope that the dance of love is now just beginning. So may I invite you to invite me to invite our friends. Let's keep miracle, let's keep magic alive as much as humanly possible, wherever, with whomever, especially with ourselves. And be the chemistry that you seek, and deliver that chemistry with elegance, with pause, with creative, cool. And keep alive. The greatest gift is the beauty of your utter uniqueness, the way you stand, talk, look. Accept, embrace, evolve the naturalness, the uncontrived naturalness of our intimacy. So, from my heart to yours, thank you for being in my life. Thank you for being part of the sharing today. And hope to see you tomorrow, God willing, at 9:30 here from Maui. Have a great day.